Welcome to the On Purpose Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Eric, with my amazing new co-host.
This is Josh, and in today's episode, we're going to share what does a successful life look like and how do you know if you're on track or way off base. That's all coming up next right here on the On Purpose Investor. So stay tuned.
Welcome to the On Purpose Investor. My name is Eric, and this show is where intentionality meets investing in yourself and your finances.
And I'm Josh, and together we'll explore the strategies, insights, and stories combined with inspiration and motivation to help you live with purpose and make an impact.
Now, whether you're a seasoned investor or just getting started, join us each week as we dive deep into the world of intentional investing. Y'all, welcome back. Today, we're talking about how you can evaluate your life and get on the fast track to your dream life. First, Josh, we have to evaluate the question, how is our life right now? Now, where were you, Josh, before you realized that you had some work to do?
Dude, it's crazy. So the thing that triggered me to first look at it is I found out my wife is pregnant. We got a third baby on the way. And here I am. Oh my gosh, I'm 40 years old, but I am sitting at work, working a job in public education. And I'm working on about my 80th hour during the week. And I have all these things that I want to do. I've got all these plans, and I realize that I'm going to have to be a father of a 16-year-old boy when I am like 60. So I think that's about the time that I figured out, like, I need to do something or I'm not going to be the person that I stare back in the mirror. It's crazy. But what about you, man? What is something that when you took a look at your life and was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really understand what does success look like. Yet there's so many ways to approach what is success. And I didn't really know that I didn't know what success looked like. I used to think success were people that drove nice cars, lived in nice houses, worked cush jobs, and seemed like on Facebook everything's all hunky dory. And then soon you realize when you get older and a little wiser, you realize those people are just miserable. Now I'm not saying all of them are miserable, but most of them are miserable. There's this post going around of you drive a paid off car and a paid off house, but the car's a little junky. The house is not as nice as others, but you got $1 million in the bank. People look at you a certain way. They don't know what's in your bank. They just see what you drive and the vanity objects around you. But you see someone driving a nice car and living in a multi-million-dollar house, and you think, oh, wow, they're successful. But really, their bank account is in the red every month.
Hey,
And so,
have you heard that song, Mo Money, Mo Problems?
and that's why I'm not trying to build a 100-door portfolio. I'm comfortable with what we got. I don't want mo problems. I like mo money, but I don't like mo problems. So I had to settle and figure out which one do I want more.
Dude, you touched on something too that I think is very important. And I failed to mention this, but as a teacher and as a coach in a metro Atlanta, Georgia, that's where I'm at in the United States, I made good money. I didn't come to any life change because I was broke. I made good money, but I also figured out, dude, that my time is more valuable than my money. I can always make something more per hour, but man, God only gave us 24 hours in a day. And I don't know about you, but what good does it do to make all the money in the world if you don't have any time to spend?
Amen to that. And that's when I had a real life awakening when my wife and we were just dating back then. She's like, Eric, what do the most successful band directors do? What does their life look like? And there's a couple that I could call on my head and be like, those are the 5 band directors that I have idolized in my journey of becoming a band director. And you look at them and you see some traits that are just common among them all. And that is that they sacrificed a lot to do what they did in the teaching world. They gave their all to their programs, but it's not hard to see through the surface to see that there's a good chance their families were lacking, or they chose not to have families at all. And that wasn't the choice I was ready to make. I was not willing to sacrifice my family or to not have a family at all. I've known since I was like 7 or 8 years old that I wanted to be a father because I
Mhm.
saw how influential my father was to me and how he paved the way for what a good man should be. And I was like, I've got to do the same. I want to be a father. A lot of little girls grow up wanting to be a mother. And I don't know how many little boys grow up wanting and desiring to be a father, but that was me. I was like, gosh, that's the one thing I really want to be is a great father. that's what I started to embody is what does a great father do? They invest their time into their families. They ensure that growth and prosperity is there for their future generations. And I couldn't do that if I'm 80 hours a week in the band world.
So my father was a Southern Baptist pastor growing up, and the interesting thing about that, my father is my hero. I think he's one of the probably the greatest man that ever walked the face of the earth. And so, two things on that. The first thing is I want to make sure that my children are able to say that about me. But then the second thing is my dad gave his entire life, his entire career to supporting a local church, which is a great place. You got to think about the charity good. Even if you're out there listening and you're not a person of faith, we can all agree that churches do things like take care of the poor and feed the hungry. They do good work in the community. But what was interesting is when he got to the end of his career, when he got to the end, what did that do for him? My father today he's retired now, and he might disagree with me because he loved it. But I also watched what it did to him over his career. No matter how many hours he worked, he always was expected by that church to work more. No matter how many visits to the hospital, it was never enough. No matter how much he raised for the charity, it was still not raised enough. And I think to myself, Eric, and I'm a teacher as well, and maybe other people out there, whatever your profession is, let me ask you this a question. And that is, do you ever feel like no matter how much you work, no matter how much you give, that it's actually not enough?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a book that my wife and I read, and I forget what it is, and it might be called called The Upper Limit Problem.
Interesting.
And,
I haven't read.
there's some issues out there in corporate America and blue collar America, and no matter where you're working. And that is that there's an upper limit. And John Maxwell writes in the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the law of the
Ah,
lid.
the OG
And
book.
yeah,
Yeah.
the OG leadership book. The law of the lid states that you're only capable to achieve so much, but other people could take it higher. The problem is your boss, your employer, your constituents, the people in your church, they don't care what your lid is. They don't care. They want you to surpass it.
Yeah.
They want you to surpass their expectations. And no matter what, everybody's going to want more. Everybody wants a faster, slimmer, sleeker iPhone or Android. Everybody wants a bigger TV. They want more. They want a faster car. They want I don't know, a more, maybe a negative calorie Diet Coke that will eat calories. Who knows? Everybody wants more of something. And that's the problem is that people are understanding when is enough. And I think if you can answer that when is enough for you and your family and your ecosystem, I think that's when you start to experience what successful life is. And that's when you start to experience like what is success for me? And success for me is being able to say that I'm proud of my family, I'm proud of my children, I'm proud of my relationship with my wife, proud of the business I've built. That is what defines success for me. Now, it didn't used to be. It used to be I want to have the car that my buddy has, or I want to have the kind of house that my friend has, or that this neighbor has. That's what it used to be.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And you touched on some things. And if you're out there listening today, how do you know if we're talking to you? Because the topic that we're talking about is what is a successful life? Here's some symptoms you may be experiencing that might let you know that you're not quite living a successful life, or maybe you're on a journey out there similar to Eric and I. Do you feel lethargic? Are you experiencing burnout? At times, do you feel like it's hard to wake up? That's a heavy one right there too, Eric, that if someone's out there and you're listening, and you feel like it's hard to wake up, number one, I need you to know that you're valuable. I just want to tell everybody out there. That's why Eric and I do the shows, because we believe that everyone can live their life on purpose. That's why we're here today. And by the way, if you're listening, you're like, what's the sell point? There it is. We need you to know that your life has purpose.
Yep.
That what being an on purpose in investors. If you just want to be an investor, you can get that anywhere. We want you to live your life on purpose. But lethargy, being lethargic and burnout, and having a hard time waking up. Eric, from your perspective, if someone is feeling those things, what's the real cause of those symptoms? Let's
Yeah.
just dig deeper. Those are probably just symptoms. It's like
Yep.
the scrape, but something caused the scrape. We'll rip the Band-Aid off. From
Yeah.
your perspective, what's that?
Yeah, below the surface, lethargy or lethargy, burnout, and hard to wake up, those are all symptoms of a deeper lying issue. And one of the biggest deeper lying issues is that you're lacking direction. You're
Mm,
lacking clarity on where should your life be going? Where do you want it to go? Do you have any idea where you want it to go? you just don't have a clue where you currently are. And your daily life, you're not intentionally making decisions in your life to level up and to get to the next level of your life so that you are living in alignment. And I speak a lot to alignment and living your life intentionally and with clarity and on purpose. Because when you do such things, you're not just benefiting for yourself and your ecosystem, your family, you're benefiting those that anyone that has contact with you. So the deeper lying issue is that you don't really know where you're going. And Yogi Berra, God, love that athlete. Also love Yogi Berra. Did you take my picnic
I
basket?
know that's where you were going. It's so funny you said that. I love you're right. It's already joking, Dan.
Yogi Berra, a great athlete. He said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And that's the problem. So many people sleepwalk through their lives. And just, I have a neighbor, and just short story. I have a neighbor who just recently passed away. And he was a United States Air Force enlisted person, and he served in Vietnam. And I had an opportunity to meet with him a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know he was sick. He went very quickly, didn't know he was sick. And I love asking older folk, what's the secret? You seem very happy in your marriage. You seem very happy in your life. You seem like you've achieved all you needed to achieve. What's the secret? He said, Eric, I didn't have a secret. I didn't know where I was going. I just lived. And
Mhm.
it turned out okay, but there's so many things I wish I could have done. And I don't want to be that person. And God bless the man, rest in peace. He absolutely built a wonderful, beautiful life. He has an amazing wife. He has an amazing family. They are wonderful neighbors. What he has built unintentionally is a beautiful thing. But to be there at the end stage of your life, and he didn't even know it, to say, I wish I could have done more. I wish I would have done more. I wish I would have known what I could have done. And I spoke to a gentleman named Bill Cook about 4 years ago with the idea of On Purpose Investor. And I said, here's what I want to do, Bill. If you don't know Bill Cook, you should go look him up, billandkimcook.com. Great teacher, great
Yeah.
mentor, great person. And he said, why do you want to teach? And I said, I used to be a teacher. I want to go back to teach. And he said, okay, well, why do you want to teach? And he just asked me about 6 or 7 times. And finally it came to me. I said, there's a light inside of every person out there, and not everyone has the opportunity to turn it on. Some people will die having never turned on the light inside of them. And that light is opportunity. That light is possibility. That light is the the, the thing inside of them that brings them to full alignment of their whole life. And he said, Eric, that's it. That's why you have to do it. You just said that, so it came to you. It must be within you, and you have to say it, and you have to teach it, and you have to do it. And that's where On Purpose Investor came from. That's why I didn't start a podcast called, I don't know, the Delayed Gratification Podcast, which I love that, or the Real Estate Investor Podcast, because I don't want to teach real estate investing. I know a lot about it, and I'm happy to share. And if you join our program, Level Up, there's a lot to be learned in that program. That's not what this podcast is for. That's not what our book was for. This is all about getting to the next version of yourself and turning that light on.
I remember there was a key moment in my life, and it goes along with this. What is a successful life? And I can tell you what a successful life is not, and then what it is. So I was a band director at a small private Christian college for about 4 years. Shout out to Point University, go Skyhawks. Anyway, I remember was in the fine arts department, and the guy that heads up the department asked me to run the sound for this event that they were having for incoming football players. So I said, sure, I'll show up and volunteer that day. So they had a coach who was a pastor that came in to talk to all these football players, and he passed them out a picture of this football field. So they all had this piece of paper that had a picture of a football field, and he had one extra. So he handed it to me in the back, and I thought, okay, whatever. So here's his speech, and then I'll tell you what I got from it. It was a picture of a football field, and he looked at all the players, and he said, you're starting college. You have just finished the first quarter of your game, the first quarter of your life. The first quarter of your life was to the end of high school. Everybody did everything for you. Your coach did things for you. You had a free education. Your parents fed you. Everything that you did was done for you. Now you're at the second quarter of your life. Now you have to learn how to be you. You got to learn how to take care of yourself. You got to learn how to pass your own grades. You got to learn how to be your own motivation. Now that's an interesting lesson, Eric, that I'll fast forward to what I got out of that. And in that moment, Eric, I was ashamed. because here's the actual truth. I had arrived at the top end of the career for a band director. Here I am teaching college, doctorate degree, you name it. I've done it in this field. The problem with that is I, at age 40, was looking at that field and I had zoned out at this point. I don't even remember what he said next, but I remember looking at that football field, realizing, oh crap, I had passed halftime. I'm in the third quarter of my game. But during the first quarter of my game, I lived it all for myself. My first quarter, everybody did things for me. But my second quarter, I was busy chasing my fame, my reputation. I was putting my ladder on that building and I was climbing it so that when I got to the top, everybody could see that Josh Boyd was at the top of this ladder. And I'm ashamed to say, I realized in that moment, though, that if life is a score, it's not measured in the look at me. It's measured in the number of people that I can make a difference. It's measured in the number of times that I can stick my hand down and pull somebody up, not just to where I'm at, but help push them past me. My life at the end of this game has to be measured on doing something that makes an impact that's bigger than myself. And so I say that to say, to get to where we're at, what causes me, what I think a successful life is when we live our life for something bigger than ourselves. And that's how I got to investing. It wasn't to be rich. It was because I needed to generate the ability of influence, generate the ability of time, and yes, generate some ability of money. Because Eric, I'm now in my third quarter. I'm going to be in my fourth quarter soon. But when I finish the second half of this game, man, I need to make a difference. I need to make a difference. So
Yeah, that's monumentally heavy, and it's big, and it's good for our listeners to hear. You may be listening and waiting for that 2-minute warning in quarter four. You might be right there at the end, and you might say, "Hey, there's no time left." I promise you there is.
yeah.
There's a gentleman named Chuck Glover. You should go check him out on Facebook if you don't know who he is. Later in his life, in his 60s or 70s, he decided that he was done trying to fight for his retirement and done trying to figure out, can he stop working and spend time with his grandchildren and spend more time volunteering at church. And he turned his life around by gaining clarity on the fact that he was near the end and he'd done nothing that he really wanted to do. He did nothing that truly brought joy and value to his life. And he went from being, this is my words, not his, but being a survivor to a thriver. And he
I
is
love that.
now just absolutely changing people's lives. And he has this amazing shirt that he is selling on his website. And I highly encourage you to go check it out. I believe that that website is chuckglover.com. And no, not chuckglover.com, but I'm going to make sure that the link for Chuck Glover gets in these show notes for you to go check out his t-shirt. One
I,
second.
I, uh, I love that. I will tell you too, while you're getting that together, something to throw out there too. We talk about living what is a successful life, and we both shared our views, or at least how we got to what a successful life is and what it's not. But I'll tell you a key quote that I read that helped me on my path, and I'll share this with our listeners out there. And it's just a great book. It's Good to Great by Jim Collins. And here's something that I
Mm.
struggle with. And here's my quote. In my life of good things, in my case, I love teaching, I love band directing, all those things I do. I make a difference in youth. There's a lot of good things. And if you're out there, there's another group of people that are living great lives. They can't finish that third or fourth quarter strong. But here's the struggle. If you have a great life, here it
Yep.
is. Where do I let go of good to make room for great? I'm going to say that again because this is a hard thing. This is heavy. Sometimes we have to think to ourselves, where do I let go of good to make room for great? I can let go of things that were here for a season, but it's time to close that chapter because God or the universe or whatever you believe, I believe in God, has something bigger for me. And it's time to close this and use what I've learned to write this awesome, amazing next chapter. And I think sometimes people struggle with letting go of good, and that's why they can't reach out and grab great.
Yeah. It's something that a lot of people, unfortunately, don't believe it's for them. They don't believe that that opportunity is for them. They tell themselves a story. They play a movie in their mind of how their life is expected to go. And so they fall in line. And I've done a lot of woo stuff over the past year and a half and figuring out like what is enlightenment, what is energy, how does that tie into my religion, how does that tie into my faith? And there's so many great things out there when it comes to energy healing and just experiencing life in a more intentional way. And I heard a lady speaking to this in a meditation I did once of play the movie in your head of where you currently are and what you used to play for yourself 10 years ago. Are you living within that movie right now? And if you are, ask yourself this question: do you like the movie? Are
Mm.
you enjoying this movie? Because you have every ability to take that movie out of the VHS player, out of the cassette player, out of the DVD player, whatever it is, hit back on the TV to get out of Netflix and put a new one in and start playing a new movie, one that is specially designed for you. And once I had that idea of this is all very easy to fix, this is all very easy to reinvent. It's really up here. It's up here in your mind. And when you can change the trajectory of your life by you telling yourself a new story of that old stuff, that's what I used to believe about myself and what I used to be capable of and what used to be expected of me. This is the new movie of what is expected of me. And when you can adapt a mentality of what my life has been has no effect, has no impact on what I can be. When you can shift that and adapt that mentality, you will be on the fast track to a successful life. And Josh, just to bring this up, I did find Chuck Glover's website. It's called massiveachievement.net. And his t-shirt is amazing. It's on the front, it's a formula. It's OPM plus OPR plus OPK times OPTI minus OPTE equals massive achievement. And all these acronyms are you take other people's money, other people's resources, other people's knowledge, and then you apply it, other people's time, other people's talent, and you minus your excuses,
Ooh,
and you get massive achievement.
I love that. I'm
Yeah,
gonna get my that shirt.
it's a great shirt.
Mm, yeah.
And Chuck gave such an incredible presentation at Dealmaker a few months back about massive achievement and how he turned his life around. And it's just one of those testimonies that rings true to any age group that you are capable of living this successful life. But the problem is you got to figure it out, what it is. So, Josh, let's move forward if you're okay with that and talk about people probably understand that they're unmotivated, that they're lethargic, that they want more purpose and they try to get more purpose, that they lack direction, and people are trying to fix it. How are they trying to fix it?
They're trying to do it this way. They probably are trying to get it on social media. Maybe if I just get on social media, I can watch a motivational video, and that sounds great for a little bit, but I think it takes something more. Or quite frankly, there are people that are out there selling programs, or as I call it, they're just taking your money, but they're not necessarily trying to invest in your life. And I know in my family, I have what I call program junkies, where they think if I just get this next bit of information, but I don't act on it. That's part of the problem, but I don't act on it. That's going to solve the problem. And you just touched on something that I think is great. Or actually, it was in the formula. It's you can have all the stuff, but if you don't take action, it doesn't actually matter because it's the massive action, as Scott Alexander would say. You got to
Yeah.
have that full blown charging rhinoceros, take that action, or it doesn't get you. It doesn't get you where you're going. What do you think people need to do instead?
Before I get to that, I want to talk about the massive action. People may be hesitant to take massive action because they're afraid to fail. And there are two things I have to say about that. The first thing is failing is encouraged because without failing, you will not understand what didn't work so that you can figure out what does. You should fail forward. And that's the direction you should always attempt to fail. Now, by no means am I saying go out there and fail on purpose. That's not the on purpose investor way. But the on purpose thing you should be doing is in the event that you do fail forward, write down everything you did wrong and not just for yourself, learn how to not do it again, but influence everyone around you and share what happened to you so that others may not learn, so that others may learn from your mistake. And the second thing is taking action does not have to be perfect. There's a lot of people out there saying take massive imperfect action. And that is a theme that I would love for people to take home and to write down maybe on their mirror with an expo marker. Say, take massive imperfect action today. And what does that look like? It could be anything. It really depends on what journey you're trying to set on. And massive imperfect action early on in my investing career, when I was still teaching, it was call people about real estate deals. And that was huge for me back then because I didn't know anything about real estate investing. And here I am calling up a mentor, no, now mentor, then just a stranger. And I call them up and be like, hey, I found this property. I'm going to make an offer. Do you think this is a good idea? And they would tell me, well, it's up to you. It's not a good deal for me, but it might be for you. Or it would be a good deal for me, but it might not be for you. And they taught me a lot of things. But just picking up that phone and dialing the number was the massive imperfect action. So, what massive imperfect action can someone listening today start to take and move forward toward their successful life? And you asked me the question, what do people need to do instead of trying to buy a program that'll solve it for them? Because we know that's not going to happen. Or watching all these motivational videos. Tony Robbins is a great motivational speaker. And I'm sure you could sit down and watch a 90-minute series on him and just be geared up and fired up to change the world. And then the next day, life happens and you forget about all of that energy that just was just 12 hours ago. So, what do they need to do instead? Biggest thing I think people need to do is start to evaluate your life in a very hypercritical way. We balance our checkbooks all the time. There are apps out there that will do it for us. There's these apps that will tell you that you have 10 subscriptions to the same thing. And we're very adamant on figuring out how to make sure we're not paying for things that we don't need to, or that the right amount of money's in our checking account, or that the oil got changed on our car when that little light flashes on the screen. We're very adamant on making sure those things happen. But are we evaluating our lives? And we have a great tool that we did not develop, but we offer a great tool that other people offer as well. And we're going to give you that free download here at the end of the episode. But Josh, talk a little bit more about what people need to do instead.
Yeah, the first thing I will say, and this is something, Eric, that you taught me to do when I came through Level Up and took the Dream Life University course, and it was eye-opening. I think people need to evaluate where they're truly at. And what I mean by that is I remember one of the exercises was we wrote out what our dream life would be, but we also, in doing so, we journaled out what our dream life was not. And you encouraged me when I was getting started. I would call you up and I would say, Eric, the funny story we'll have to tell on the podcast later because it's so long, about the time I bought a house that didn't have a septic. I didn't know that was possible. And there it's a whole
Great
thing.
story. Can't wait to do that
I
podcast.
can't wait to do that breakdown for
It'll be
you.
the
But remember,
crappiest episode we ever produce.
look, that's hilarious. But I remember when I called you up and you said, what's your worst case scenario? Because I was freaking out. You're like, what's your worst case scenario? I evaluated it and I realized my worst case scenario is I need $10,000. Like I wasn't going to die. The deal wasn't going to go away. The house wasn't going to blow up. My worst case scenario was $10,000. And we talk about our life. I realized through Dream Life University that I was already living in my old life. I was already living my worst life. I was already waking up, working 80 hours. I was already coming home, not happy with who I was because I was so tired. I was already not a great husband. I was already not a great father to my two teenagers. I was already not anything that I wanted to be. But I
Although
never,
the outside perception of your life is Josh has it all.
yes, you would think I had
Josh
it all
has won all
together.
these awards. Josh has taken his band to do all these things. Josh is posting all these great things on Facebook. But inside, the story's different.
Story was very different. And what do people need to do instead? You mentioned it. We need to balance the checkbook of our lives. Take a look at our lives. What are your real values? And then measure your life by those values, but then go one step further. And that is when you identify. And by the way, if you've listened to this episode this far, the truth of the matter is you are me, you are Eric, you are a lot of us. You already know the truth. And that truth is that your life is probably slightly out of balance. So once you contemplate it, you got to have the power, the grit, the will, the perseverance to then go, I've got to reinvent this. I got to put my life in balance. And I'll simply say this. When I started this process team, I was 40 years old. I'd already climbed the top of the ladder and stood on top of the building. I was there. And I had to reinvent myself because when I got up there, I realized I climbed the wrong ladder. And I mentioned that today because there's someone out here listening to this show today. That's you. Your greatest fear is that by doing this, what do you do instead? Josh, if I evaluate my life, what if I come to the realization that I'm 50 and I climbed the wrong ladder? Then do what I did. Do what Eric did. Climb yourself back down that ladder. You pick up your ladder and you go to the building that is your true dream life. You hoist that ladder and you climb one step. And then you climb 2 steps. And as Eric mentioned, sometimes you're going to climb 2 steps and you're going to take 1 step back, AKA Josh with a busted up septic that didn't even exist. But you know what? Today, that's a cash flowing property that next month I'm going to make $1,000 a month in cash flow on a house that I almost walked away from because of my fear. You can't let fear guide you. You can't let fear in your relationships guide you. You can't let fear in your investing guide you because we're seldom willing to sacrifice that comfort and pleasure for delayed gratification. Sometimes you have to sacrifice that thing today, experience a little fear. It's okay for the pleasure that's going to come a little bit later. Is there anything, Eric, that you want to add in here? I just realized I was getting preachy. I need to step off this
No.
podium. I'm going to get a tambourine and start playing my tambourine and waving my flag. And I might even pass an offering plate around or something. I don't know. I'm
Oh
having
my
church.
gosh. I can tell your father was a pastor, no doubt.
I'm
Listen,
sorry.
so you talked about sacrifice, and early on, like the first 10, 20 episodes of the On Purpose Investor podcast, I often call it just the OPI. On the OPI, we talked a lot about sacrifice. And more importantly, we talked about delayed gratification. Um, we even had the idea of creating a delayed gratification Care Bear that if at any moment you felt like you needed to go buy this one thing or do this one thing or go on this one trip, you go over there and you grab your delayed gratification Care Bear, you give it a hug and you say, you know what, that can wait.
Great. That's it. We're doing this. If it's not here right now in this episode to talk us off the cliff of doing that, you know what, Eric? I say let's do it. Let's go get us a delayed gratification Care Bear. I'm on her. Let's go.
Oh my gosh, he's already on Google. He's looking it up right now. Y'all, the sacrifice is important when either turning your boat around and going down the ladder to put it on a different building, or when you're first getting started and you haven't even started climbing a ladder to any building. It's very important to understand that sacrifice is going to be a part of your journey. And you might be unwilling to sacrifice. You may be in your 30s or 40s and say, you know what, I've worked my butt off for 20 years. I'm buying that house because I deserve it. Or I'm buying that car because I deserve it. That's one of the most unhealthy relationships you can have with yourself is the I deserve it. Because until you have start evaluating your life, until you have a scorecard of your life and know that the 8 areas of your life, which I will talk about them in just a second, the 8 areas of your life are maxed out and you are happy with where they are, you don't deserve it. And I hate to be so stark and so rude about it, but you don't deserve it because you haven't filled up your bucket in this category. And there are 8 categories that we're going to go through of the wheel of life of these need to be in balance. They don't all need to be at 100, but they need to be balanced. And you need to be putting forth the effort into the ones that you value. And the worst thing you can do is be on a journey toward a successful life and then reach like your 40th birthday or your 30th birthday and say, you know what? When I was a kid, I said by 30, I was going to have XYZ. And so no matter what I'm doing in my life, I'm doing that because I deserve it, because I've busted hump and I deserve it, right? Don't fall into the pit of jonesing for the things that other people your age have or people older than you have or younger than you have. Don't fall into that thinking trap because they're not living the life that you're living. I used to be a little boy, 10, 11 years old, and always had this mindset of the people that were rude to me in school, that I would be at a different station in life than them one day. That I always took the high road. I was always nice. I was always kind. I always walked away from situations. And I said, you know what? These people that are antagonizing me or bullying me, because I dealt with a lot of bullying in middle school and high school. And I said, you know what? There was always that joke that went around that you could say, how did that go? You're gonna pump my gas someday. I don't know how it goes. But I always had that mentality of, you know what? I'm on a different race than them. I'm running a different race. I'm gonna walk away from situations that are going to hinder me from success. And that maybe is just a unique feature about me that has led me to where I am. But even if it's not unique and innate to you, it can be learned. It's a learned skill of I will delay the gratification of this thing or this event or this travel so that I can fill these areas of my life.
Yeah, you touched on something that I think it's cool that you said, and that's you talked about what we deserve versus what we don't deserve. And I just want to finish everything that I have to say with this episode as far as we started by talking about what is a successful life. And I just want to answer that point blank, Eric, and then I'm going to ask you the same question and let you answer in just 2 sentences or less. What is a successful life? For me, a successful life is when I live my life for something bigger than myself. When I finish my fourth quarter and someone looks back and they say, and here lies a person that lived his life for God, and it was bigger than himself, and he left something bigger or greater. For me, that is success, to live it for something or maybe someone else, something else. What are you, to get to that final thing, Eric, what is a
Yeah.
successful life? What is that for you?
Yeah. For me, it's that 50 to 100 years after I pass, my picture is going to be on somebody's wall, either as a momentum or a memory. Maybe it's my great grandson or granddaughter or someone of that nature. I don't want to be just a picture on a wall that they say, I think I'm related to that guy. I think I might be related to that guy. I want to be remembered as that was the turning point in my family's lineage. Before that guy, the Vogels were insignificant. They were poor. They were XYZ. But when he came along and when he put a lot of effort into shifting the trajectory for generations of our family, that is why we have what we have. And I don't say that in this egocentric thing. I say that in the sense of I want to be the cornerstone of future generational success. I want to ensure that my children's children don't start at a station in life that I had to, that their families, their parents and grandparents and great grandparents teach them what I'm trying to teach everyone now. And that from the day one of their journey in life, that they're living life intentionally and that they're making decisions on purpose. And that y'all might think this is just a podcast. No, this is my life. This is what I strive for. And all this podcasting we do, we may only get 100 downloads on one episode and maybe 10,000 on the next. It doesn't matter. All of this is documentation that I want future generations of my lineage to go back and listen to and say, I can relate to him. I hear his voice. I hear his charisma. I hear his energy. I want to live in the footsteps of the former leaders of my family. And for me, it's all very like lineage based. And it's very like, how many people can we reach if every generation of my family lives life with intention? I have a mission to donate $1 million before I'm 40 to something. And I'm halfway there. But I've given to different things, different places, different shelters, different efforts. Just last year, I was able to contribute largely to an event and a charity called Share the Love, where we give the access of mobility to those that would otherwise not have it. And we give wheelchairs to people in third world countries that otherwise would never have a wheelchair. And that was a great thing to be a part of. Loved doing that. And I want to do 20x, 100x of what I did last year. You asked me, what does success look like? In my mind, that's it. It's this generational impact that.
Dude, that's pretty heavy. Before I close this out, is there anything else that you want to add? I don't think I can top what you just said. That's it.
Yeah, I do want to just give a brief example or a brief description of what our giveaway is today. It's a free download, and Josh is going to talk about it briefly. but it's how to start balancing your life. And this is called the Wheel of Life. And it's an exercise you can do with yourself or your family, your spouse. And there are 8 categories here. We have finance, personal growth, health, friends, relationships, recreation, spirituality, and your career. And you're going to basically shade in each of these categories where you feel like your joy is, where your success is, whatever level of how you want to measure it, that's what you need to be consistent on all of them on. But go ahead and fill it out and feel like you feel like you're really strong financially, but you're weak in relationships. And then you know what to work on. You might be 8 out of 10 on all of them. You might be 1 out of 10 on all of them. You got a lot of work to do. It's okay. The thing is that you're identifying where you are so that you can start making changes to live a more intentional life towards a successful life. So I'm ready to take it out when you are.
Yeah, I think that's great. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today on another episode of the On Purpose Investor. So, what is a practical step that you can take today to kick burnout to the curb and start living your best fulfilled life? Eric just mentioned it. We want you to head over to onpurposeinvestor.com/products and go to the free downloads. That's right. I said free. Grab a copy of our Wheel of Life chart and spend time filling it out. And I would even say spend meaningful time filling it out. Get yourself in a room. It's powerful because this thing is going to tell you, it's going to help you identify your life. For me, it was a football field. For you, this Wheel of Life can be your football field to help you identify where you're at today. And it's going to give you clarity on where you need to focus your time and energy moving forward.
Yeah. And if you want to take that next step in designing a lifestyle suited for your desires, we encourage you to go download the free ebook of the Pathfinder's Journey that shares a story how a young couple designed their life with intention. You can get that book at onpurposeinvestor.com/ebook.
Yeah. And if you like the show, obviously we would love it if you would share it with a friend.
And if you love the show, please, if you're listening on Apple, scroll down in your app to leave us a review. Any other platform, find out where to leave a review. Go do that, please.
And if you want more from us, follow us at On Purpose Investor on Facebook and Instagram.
And if you want more from Josh and I, please join our email list. We send 1 to 3 emails a week. You can unsubscribe at any time. If we become a pestering or a nuisance, unsubscribe anytime. But we welcome your thoughts. We welcome your conversation. onpurposeinvestor.com/sign up.
So until then, make intention your number one priority because you only get one life. So live it purposely.
If you love what you heard today, it would mean the world to us if you would take a moment to rate, review, and share this podcast with someone that you believe would benefit too. Sharing is the best way for us to grow and to develop a community to join you on your intentional investing journey.
In the meantime, come hang out with us on social media at On Purpose Investor, or sign up for our next course, newsletter, or meetup at onpurposeinvestor.com. But most importantly, go out, live your life, and do it on purpose.